Hello， 大家好，又係我高B哥啊，係時間提醒大家飲水啦，增添智慧，增添水分，智慧如水啊！好啦，嚟到錄片時間，2025年嘅8月7號啊，依然咧係繼續咧陳啟宗嘅一個咧對談訪問噶。嚟到第3節啦嚇，嗱高B哥已經提醒咗大家，因為條片咧好長啊，咁所以咧我要分開一節一節，大約咧每一節係20分鐘啊，鬆20分鐘鬆啲咁，咁咧等大家咧聽得輕鬆啲。咁啊，如果有人咧真係咧想咧一次過聽晒個幾鐘咧，可以咧 send email 俾我啊，又或者咧留言板嗰度講，咁我等我咧整一條咧係足足咧個幾鐘頭嘅影片俾大家，咁但係咧即係我自己聽都覺得好長噶，咁我寧願就分開幾節嚟聽，咁啊變咗時間性咧可以掌握好啲，咁但係咧實在太精彩，嗱跟住落嚟咧你會見到咧陳啟宗咧開始有啲火啊！有啲火啊嚇，咁啊答嘢嘅時候咧，可能咧有陣時咧會翹起隻手啊，往前往後啊，突然間講嘢咧好衝啊，又或者咧講得好快啊咁啊，嗱呢個咧就係你睇到佢點樣去表現啦。我哋嘅不滿係咪？咁但係咧呢樣嘢咧係一個好好嘅一個演示，包括咗身體語言，包括咗咧語氣態度，同埋咧你睇下佢點樣去答翻咧佢哋嗰個問題嗰個技巧啊，咁啊希望咧大家可以喺從中咧攞到一啲你哋想攞到嘅嘢。OK。好啦，而家去片先啊。
Well, Ronnie, if I may, since we're talking about, China's rise or China having risen to great power status, here's a question that I received from the audience, and let me read it to you. Given China's treatment of Uyghurs, Tibetans, and dissidents, do you sympathize with those who fear the rise of China?
Well, if you are the Uyghurs, I can certainly understand. Because of historic reasons, the northwestern part of China, Xinjiang province in particular, has always been a mixed area between the Uyghurs and the Han people, which comprise 92% of the Chinese population. It has always been a mixed area. My sister-in-law come from there. And so, but mind you, about something, and that is Xinjiang province, together with Tibet, has always been contested by the Russians, the British, the French, even the Americans, and certainly the Germans as well. The great game of the 19th century. Why is that the case? Well, everybody is after something, either defensively or offensively. There's a lot of natural resources in that part of the world. Most of the big rivers in India start from Tibet. And so the great game, now, you say, why are the Chinese, in Xinjiang province and Tibet province? Because they have been that way for the last couple of thousands of years. Rather, my question is, why were the Germans there in the 19th century? Why were the French, the British, the Americans, the Russians, why are they there? So, such is human affairs. China is no saint. Neither Americans, nor British, or French, nor German, sorry. Nobody is a saint. Everybody is after his own interest.
So there are reasons to be concerned about China's rise. That's what you're saying.
Of course there is. Who would be so naive to think that a big guy like China with 1.4 billion people rising, people would not be worried? Right? So, the question is not whether, what I do object to is irrational fear. Fear is understandable. Irrational fear is terrible. I asked some questions in the last 3.5 days since I've been in Germany, and I've been talking to a lot of think tank people. I asked them simple facts, and they don't know the facts. And yet they are so, shall I say, irrationally fear of China. Let's get the facts right first.
Talking about getting facts right, here comes your favorite question, Ronnie. Let's talk a little bit about the South China Sea, which is, for all intents and purposes, one of the flashpoints, not only between China and its neighbors, but also in China, in Chinese-American relations. Now, what what a lot of people find hard, not only in the West but also in China's neighborhood, is to square that rhetoric of China's peaceful rise with actions in the South China Sea. Land reclamations, building military bases on those artificial islands. How does that go together?
Very simple. First of all, Japan in 1945 has to give back all the territory that it has taken from its neighbors. Who did Japan give all those islands back to? Spratly and Paracel. Who to? China.
And that is the Chinese version of history.
No, that's not the Chinese version. That's historic facts. The United States 7th Fleet accompanied the Chinese, whatever navy that they had at the time. It is, you want the name of the captain of the British, of the American ships that sailed to protect the Chinese Navy? I can find it for you. It's historic fact. If you have a problem with facts, then end of discussion. The fact, I go to America a lot. In America, you talk to anybody who is in the know in Washington, D.C. They would know that those islands were all given back to China, escorted by the 7th Fleet Navy of the United States. Why? In the 50s, they negotiated with the North Korean. At that time, they were buddy-buddy, good friends. They gave some of the islands to the Vietnamese. The rest of it lie there for 70 years. Why did China not do anything for 60 years until now?
Why?
There's an island north of Taiwan. Only, I don't know how far it is, I forgot. Very close. It has been disputed. It's called the Diaoyu Island, or the Japanese call it the Senkaku Island. The Chinese call them the Diaoyu Island. In the Cairo Declaration, at the end of the Second World War, that island, together with the whole of the Ryukyu, were given back to China. Chiang Kai-shek, the leader of China at the time, were busy fighting Mao Zedong, the communist. So he said to the American, let's co-administer it. Then he lost a war to Mao Zedong. Do you think that America will give it to communist China? So America took it. In 1972, if I get my dates right, gave all that to Japan. China contested, so they agreed to disagree. Diaoyu Island, let's leave it to the next generation, according to Deng Xiaoping. Let's leave it to the next generation to resolve it. For now, we'll agree to disagree. About 4 years ago, Japan announced unilaterally that they bought it from the owner of the island, the occupier of the island, whatever it is. They nationalized it. What did America say? Nothing. In fact, after the Japanese unilaterally took it, the Japanese foreign minister, the Australian foreign minister, and John Kerry at that time, the Secretary of State in the United States, the three of them had a press conference that says, we oppose any change to the status quo. What status quo? Before or after the Japanese unilaterally nationalized it? Of course it's after, because the press conference was held afterwards. So the United States cannot say that this thing belonged to Japan because they know what it says in Cairo Declaration. And don't say that it's not fact. Just go back to Cairo Declaration and read it. And so, Japan unilaterally took that island. So China did not dispute it, or they disputed it, but there's nothing they can do. Have you ever come across your mind that if you pick on a big guy, or you pick on a guy like me, there's not much consequences. I'm a small guy. If I'm a big guy like that young man did, there's consequences. And China is a big guy. You take that island from China unilaterally, and America said nothing about it. So the Chinese said, okay, you do this, I do that. You react one way, you act one way, I react another way.
And Ronnie, just because China is such a big guy, wouldn't it be a responsible behavior for a country, a global country such as China is, to build trust rather than to sort of pour even more gasoline into the fire in a region which is, even without these tensions, already quite tense?
Pardon my language. You expect a big guy to lie down and say, rape me?
I would expect a big guy to try and build confidence.
Why do they need to build confidence just because you blackmail them and take their bedroom or steal whatever from them, and they say, oh, I build trust. You can take anything you want from me. Come to my house, take whatever you want. I am here to build trust. Which country would do that? Why do you expect that of China?
But other countries would consider legitimate claims from the neighbors for the situation is not as clear as you might see or interpret it.
Do you know that in the 1960s, there was a German radio station that wrote to Manila and said, can I build a broadcasting station on this island? And Manila wrote back and said, we don't own it. Now Manila claims that they own that island. In the 1970s, you check history. Before 1970s, none of those nations in the South China Sea surrounding claim any of that stuff. It is in the 70s when China was undergoing the Cultural Revolution. China was weak, China was in trouble. The pack of hyenas all come up, and there was oil discovered. There's a lot of natural resources, fishery and so forth. Mm-hmm. Suddenly everyone wanted to claim. But why did the United States 7th Fleet escorted the Chinese Navy to take back all that island in 1945? You tell me, please. Why? Mm-hmm. They don't own it?
I can't tell you.
Then please consider it.
I think, we could perhaps speak another hour about the South China Sea. You have a very explicit point of view on that.
America, no, anybody in the know, including David Petraeus, my friend, by the way, ask them about South China Sea, not an issue. Why? They know the facts. Unlike what I saw here in Germany in the last 3 days. I'm sorry.
Mm-hmm. We will observe the future of the South China Sea. There is a very big initiative, a project China is shaping, and it's changing our current order already, the One Belt, One Road initiative, $900 billion. A lot of Western partners observe it with, we would say, perhaps suspicion. The German Foreign Minister Sigmar Gabriel said concerning the One Belt and One Road.
Which country's foreign minister?
German.
I'm sorry, I apologize.
Germany's foreign minister. He said that the problem concerning the One Belt, One Road initiative is not China having a strategy, but the West lacking a strategy. Would you agree on that?
Yeah, he put it in an interesting way. Mm-hmm. The reality is, what is the Belt and Road Initiative? The Belt and Road Initiative is nothing more than the Silk Road of 2,000 years ago. 2,000 years ago, the Silk Road has two parts, the Sea Road and the land link. Mm-hmm. The one belt is a terrestrial link. The sea route, or sea road, if you will, is what it is. And the the Silk Road in the old days has those two parts. In fact, there's more along the water than there were on land, the old Silk Road. Today, which part of the world is the least globalized? The Silk Road was the beginning of globalization as we understand it today, right? So which part of the world is the least globalized in the whole wide world today? Now, I travel 70% of the time. I go to, Armenia, Georgia, Kazakhstan, wherever, Turkey, Israel. The most or I should say the least globalized part of the world is perhaps Central Asia. I go to Africa, it's pretty globalized. I go to Latin America, pretty globalized. Central Asia. So sooner or later, whether the Chinese raise this issue of Belt and Road Initiative, call it whatever you want, New Silk Road, whatever, somebody will figure that one out and say that is a part of the world that is not globalized, that ought to be globalized. On the one hand, to do trade, so that we can open more new market. On the other hand, hopefully it will benefit the livelihood of the local people as well. So the Belt and Road Initiative, Xi Jinping mentioned it. If you didn't mention it, that's your problem. China mentioned it, but no country can own the Silk Road. You can own whatever is within your border. That which is beyond is none of yours. That's where you collaborate and trade and do business together. So I think that the Belt and Road Initiative to the Chinese makes a lot of sense, economically and politically.
So would you agree that it's also a geopolitical project disguised as an economic one?
No, it's very economic as well as political. Why do you have to segregate the two? You cannot segregate the two. Mm-hmm. Economics and politics, at the end of the day, is all together. So consider the fact that China needs energy, as I mentioned, right? Energy security. A lot of those countries on the New Silk Road are rich in energy, right? Mm-hmm. Azerbaijan, Russia, Kazakhstan, that whole area, Turkmenistan, the whole area, Iran. So China, it makes a lot of sense economically to be friendly with those countries to ensure a steady supply of energy. Russia has a lot of it, but as we all know, just talk to my Ukrainian friends, Russia is not necessarily the most reliable. And they negotiated with the Russians for 15 years and they couldn't get a gas deal until America and the West, you guys, begin to sanction Russia, and suddenly Russia struck a deal with China. Mm-hmm. But everyone knows Russia, is it that reliable? Think twice. So China needs to diversify its energy sources. And so it is very economic. Of course, it's political too, because, all those countries, a lot of them are Muslim countries. China has a domestic Muslim population. By having good relationship with those countries, hopefully you will have less of a problem domestically. You mentioned the Uyghurs. So geopolitical, geoeconomic, it makes sense for China. And by the way, it makes sense for the local countries as well. The former Prime Minister of Pakistan said to me last year, $39 billion is already into Pakistan to build roads, the corridor, For China, it makes a lot of geopolitical and geoeconomic sense. And so, but then for Pakistan, you got roads, you got railroads, you got ports. Why not? Everybody wins.
Everybody wins. That's sort of the buzzword. Let's look at the far end of the Silk Road from a Beijing perspective for a moment. Europe. The Chinese have increasingly turned to Europe when it comes to international cooperation. Emmanuel Macron, the French president, went to Beijing a couple of days ago, and he brought a very nice black horse with him from the Republican Guard as a gift to Xi Jinping. So one of the questions that people ask themselves here in Germany, but also probably in other parts of Europe, is who is Beijing's key interlocutor in Europe? Is it Angela Merkel or is it Emmanuel Macron?
That's a dangerous question. The answer is simple. Whoever wants to be a friend. If Germany wants to be, for example, in the old days, Helmut Kohl's days, every year he'd take a big delegation to China. Even Schroeder did some of that, right? Recognizing the economic opportunities.
Merkel did too.
Merkel did too, okay. So if you want to be a friend of China, China is more than happy to be a friend of yours. They need a lot of things. They need your technology, your precision tools. There are many things that you have that they want or need. In the case of Germany, it's more they need, such as precision tools. What France has is what they want, such as red wine.
Louis Vuitton handbags.
Right? Handbags, whatever, right?
Yeah.
So whoever wants to be friends with the Chinese will be friends with you.
So you don't see any change within the political framework inside Europe?
It's up to you.
No, you as a trading and negotiating partner.
No, it's a trading partner. Whoever wants to trade, they will trade.
I mean, is there, with the arrival of Emmanuel Macron in France, is this changing anything for you?
It depends on how Beijing look at Macron and hence his government. If there are ulterior motive that the Chinese detect, of course they'll be a little bit more cautious. But I think that so far, from what I can tell, a lot of it is basically trade related. And China being a big country, the United States always like to, slap trade sanctions on everybody. Perhaps another one is coming, right? As you indicated that Xi Jinping and Donald Trump had a phone call. So Europe is a big market. 600 million people, very wealthy, buy a lot of goods and can supply a lot of necessary or desirable goods to the Chinese. They're happy to trade with you.
They're happy to trade with us Europeans. They may also may or may not be happy to collaborate with us on international issues such as the North Korean nuclear issue, where Europe plays a minor role for all intents and purposes.